These entitled parents think they can push this lifeguard around simply because he is giving safety instructions to their rebellious child. He's only trying to protect them, but if they don't want his help, the consequences are on them. Happy birthday, today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. So, it's a normal day at the beach. Nothing spectacular. I noticed this kid, maybe 12, fixing up his fishing pole on the beach. Let's call him Entitled Child. Now this isn't really a problem because there is a designated area away from the swimmers where people can fish from the shoreline and try to catch some of the striped bass that swim close to the shore in the warmer months. After a while, I notice Entitled Child moving towards the corner of the swimming area and begin casting his lines into the swimming area, throwing his hooked line between other children. Naturally, I call him over and explain to him that he cannot use the hooks to fish in the swimming area because it's very unsafe for the swimmers. The Entitled Child begins throwing a fit that he cannot fish wherever he wants to fish. Then EC's mum comes over.
"What did you do to my child?"
Always a good sign when they start shouting right out of the gate. "I told your son that he isn't allowed to fish in the swimming area. He needs to fish in the designated fishing spots. State rules."
"You can't tell my son where he can or cannot fish. He has his fishing permit. He can fish wherever the heck he wants."
Ma'am, I understand he has his permit, but this beach is owned by the state and they don't want people to fish among the swimmers. He could hook someone and then the state would be liable for letting him fish near swimmers.
"So why don't you tell the swimmers to move? There's almost nobody here today and he wants to catch some good fish. He doesn't like fishing with all those other idiots in the tiny fishing spot you have set up."
Ma'am, even if I were to move the swimmers, if he loses a hook in the waters within the swimming area, someone could step on it.
"Well, he's gonna fish wherever the heck he wants, and I want to see your manager."
I radio my manager and ask him to come to my station. "Manager is on the way, ma'am. He's gonna tell you the same thing I told you."
"Good."
Entitled mum turns to her child.
"Okay, honey, you go fish wherever you want. Mommy is going to make the mean people go away."
"Ma'am, your son is not allowed to fish in the swimming area. If he goes back over there, I will revoke both of your beach passes for the day." The ultimate power of the guard. "I would advise you to wait until the beach manager arrives or simply follow the clearly posted rules."
"Excuse me? You can't revoke the passes we paid for? Are you going to pay for my passes? If you freaking kick me out, you are gonna pay, I swear."
The entitled mum begins digging through my duffel bag trying to find my wallet. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the beach." I radio security. There ends up being a huge hissy fit and the mum is escorted back to the parking lot by security. A few hours later, the entitled mum's husband shows up.
"Are you the punk ass lifeguard who told my boy he couldn't go fishing?"
I told him he could fish in the fishing area away from the swimmers.
"Listen here, jerk face. I'm gonna find you after you get off and beat the heck out of you. We got an RV and we're in town for the whole weekend. I'll be waiting."
There was an RV camping spot up the road, so having people from far corners of our state or even out of state spend multiple days at our beach was not uncommon. Sir, I'm not going to fight anyone. Your wife and your son were escorted off the beach for disobeying clearly posted rules and trying to rob me. The entitled husband angrily walked away as I was explaining this. So this is the end of my encounter with the family on day 1. I see this kid in the tree line watching me every now and again, but I figure the family will buzz off at dusk like 90% of upset beachgoers do. I'm more worried he'll sneak back onto the beach to try and fish. My shift ends, I pack up and go home. Uneventful. Day 2. I get to the beach at sunrise and we have our morning guard meeting. Drink coffee, talk daily events. I head over to my station and begin setup procedures. Every shift, the guard on duty needs to set up and break down their station. You need to get a fresh radio with new batteries, pull out the paddle, board, spool, flotation devices, unlock the bathrooms, and other stuff like that. One interesting thing most people don't know is that lifeguards need to create a pile of sand at the base of their chair. This pile of sand is there to break your fall when you jump out of the 10-foot chair onto the sand. If you didn't have the dry sand pile, you would break your ankles on the wet sand. It's like cement. We have special sand rakes to make this job easier. Now, if you're lazy, you might just rake some new sand onto the mound from yesterday and call it done. But it's a good idea to make a new one every day because the pile can harden if it gets wet from the tide. Another guard and I were working in 30-minute shifts, sharing the chair that day since it was a busy holiday weekend. As I'm setting up, my co-guard told me that he saw the kid and his dad near my chair the night before after shift shift, and we should give the whole thing a once over to make sure they didn't mess with anything. I check the screws, the seat, the visor, umbrella stand. Everything appears to be in order. I tell him everything is good and I hop up to my seat to start my shift. Not long after this, my manager asks me to help him with some paperwork from previous incidents in the week. We need to fill out lots of paperwork when we rescue someone, so I go to hop down. This is the conversation that followed. Hey man, stop. What? Don't hop into that sand pile yet. I haven't fixed it from yesterday. It's no big deal, man. Trust me, man, he says as he begins raking the sand pile. I hopped on one of these and it rolled my ankle really bad last year. As he rakes, a small object becomes visible, sticking through the side of the pile. Hey man, what is that? I don't know. It looks like a stick. Pull it out. I don't want to hop on that. My co-guard pulls out a 6-inch stick that had been covered to a point and left pointing upwards in my sand pile. Naturally, we both freak out. We rake down the sand pile and surrounding area and find 2 more sharpened spikes in the pile along with some fish hooks. We know exactly who did it. That little brat and his dad from yesterday. We call in police, security and the management, but the family is long gone. Plus, we can't prove that they were the ones who did it, since my co-guard only saw them near the chair and not actually putting these traps in place. My manager refused to ban the family on these grounds. Lack of evidence. Cops said they couldn't really do anything. Luckily, we never saw the family ever again. Can you imagine if he actually jumped down and that stuck in his foot? I mean, it's lucky they found it, but because there was no evidence to prove it was them, it's like, what can you do? And that's the sucky thing about terrible people like this, is sometimes they just don't get the justice that they actually deserve. I mean, maybe it would have been better if the dad actually did try and fight him. Then there would be evidence against him. They could have done something about it. You have to be pretty stupid though to set up all those traps and then leave fishhooks as like your calling card. They obviously left them there to be like, yep, that's us. But that might have been the one thing that actually connected them to the crime. When I was diagnosed with my chronic pain condition, my doctor put me in touch with a couple of support groups based in my city. I became friends with a few members. When one of them is having a flare-up, I, or someone else who isn't flaring, will swing by and help out with chores and errands. Sometimes when my condition flares up, the pain in the joints in my feet will cause the muscles to cramp, which pulls harder on the joints, which causes the muscles to cramp harder, which, look, you're all smart folk. I don't need to tell you that this is not the greatest wake-up call in the world. After a bad night of this, I finally got to sleep at around 5:30. At 7:03, I checked. There was a loud banging on my door. Thinking it was maybe a postman with a parcel, starting her rounds early, I grabbed some sweatpants, my postie is really cute, and hobbled to the door. Upon opening the door, I find some estate rat-looking woman on my doorstep with 3 kids texting on her phone. Finally, I need you to look after my kids for a bit and then take them to school. All said fast without even looking up from her smartphone. And then she freaking turns around and starts walking off. Wait, what? Who are you? Not kidding. Never seen this person before in my life. For goodness sake, I'm F's friend. Starting to wake up fast now because, well, crap. Okay, but why are you trying to dump your kids on me at 7 in the morning? I don't know you or them. I'm genuinely starting to panic now. Look, I know you do this for F all the time, so just look after my kids. No, she'd already started to walk off again, but spins back around. What the heck? You look after F's kids all the time, so just freaking look after mine. Still going to be a no. I occasionally do favors for my friend F. I don't even know you. No actual clue what she was screaming here, but she was actually spraying flecks of foam from her mouth. Now take your kids and get lost or I'm calling the police. I close the door, take deep breaths, and think that it's all over. Of course it isn't. What even happens in these people's heads? Hammering on my door and there's screeching. My door is half glass, so I start to worry she's going to break it. I grabbed the phone from my dining room, back to my poor mistreated front door, opened the door. Listen you! She sees my phone, sees me dial my phone. Hello? Police please. She gathers up those poor kids and scurries off. So I made a cup of tea and came here to vent, and it's actually helped. Some of the weirdest entitlement stories are the ones where people are like, well, they're doing this nice thing for that person, therefore they're gonna do it for me. I don't know if they feel too awkward to ask, so if they just like assume it's okay, then somehow they'll just get their way. Kind of like the story with the woman who just rocks up their house with the swimming gear, being like, hey, we're ready to use the pool. I guess if you were a pushover, then it would be too awkward to say anything, but as we know, one of the entitled parents' greatest weaknesses is the word no. Okay, so this happened in the summer of 2011. I was 12 years old. My friends, F1 and F2, 13 and 14 respectively, and I were at a park near our apartment building. It was quite normal for kids to hang out in the area, since it's a fairly safe neighborhood. We knew a few of the other kids and their parents. We decided we'd take our snacks and a towel so we could sit on the grass and have a picnic. Now, I'm hypoglycemic. I've had my fair share of attacks, but this was by far the worst one. And all was caused because of an entitled parent and her bratty children. EK1 and 2. As we were sitting, I started feeling hot and a little dizzy, nothing I wasn't accustomed to. My mum had packed me a few crackers with cheese to get my blood sugar up and running again. I only ate about 3 out of 10 because I wasn't feeling too bad, and just in case I felt worse later on. As I was finishing my third one, EK1 approached me and says, "I want your crackers." I was a bit taken aback by it. Who the heck just says they want something that's yours? Mind you, I don't know the kid. The neighborhood is pretty big and new people show up every day. No, I tried to reply as bluntly as I could, just like he had talked to me. Yes, I had a lot of crackers, and if he'd asked nicely for one, I probably would have given it to him. "I want your crackers, now!" He screamed and made a grab for my crackers. I pulled them back as quickly as I could, and my friends put them behind their backs as to protect them. He ran to his mother screaming, and I thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. I've always looked up to people older than me. My parents taught me always to be respectful, as they are older and probably know what's best. But I still knew how to stand my ground. Not in this situation though. As I finally relaxed, I hear footsteps coming towards us once more. EP was staring at me furious, yelling at me because I didn't give her son my crackers. I tried to explain I needed them because of my condition, but she cut me off.
Are you really that selfish that you can't give my son your crackers? Where are your parents? I can't believe they raised you to be this disrespectful.
My friends were baffled, and so was I. This was not helping, as stressful environments and anxiety can lead to a bad hypoglycemic attack. As she kept berating me with questions and insults towards my family, I could feel my string of consciousness growing weaker and weaker. I was trying so hard to explain myself. I rambled on for about 10 minutes, but I was getting more and more confused by the second. My friends were now speaking for me, as they could see the state I was in.
You can't speak for yourself, you brat.
Her words were starting to echo in my brain, and I could not for the life of me answer her questions. As the situation progressed, I couldn't believe what I was feeling. She was grabbing me by my shoulders, lifting me up from the towel. This part became a little muddled in my mind, but I remember my friend getting up and yelling, "Get off her! She's having a hypoglycemic attack, you idiot!" She pushed the woman off and tried to get the attention of one of the adults around. I stumbled a bit, and F1 caught me and laid me down on the towel. I could still hear the entitled parent yelling at me and my friends. I recognized a few of the voices that were speaking to EP, but I couldn't move. At this point, I was falling in and out of consciousness, and that part was incredibly terrifying. As I have attacks from time to time, I wear a bracelet with information, just in case anything happens in public and I'm alone. F2 took it off of me in order to hand it to one of the adults that were helping in the situation. Entitled Kid 2 snatches it from her hand, and I can hear her go, Mommy, look, I found a bracelet. Can I keep it?" That didn't last long though, as one of the adults grabbed it out of the Entitled Kid 2's hands. In the moments I was awake, I could hear EP accusing me of faking it for the attention, and to cover up my selfish act. After about half an hour, my body finally shuts down from exhaustion, and the last thing I remember is the faint sound of an ambulance and the police. I woke up a few hours later in the hospital. I couldn't remember much as I was extremely tired and confused. My mother informed me I was short of having a seizure and was lucky. I could feel she was extremely frustrated, not at me obviously, and told me Dad had pressed charges against EP for child endangerment. I still remember that day vividly. If you haven't noticed, entitled parents love to pick on the vulnerable. People who have a disability, children, anyone they think is weaker than them or is a pushover. So it's encouraging when you see people like this kid standing up to people like this who think they're entitled to your stuff. This isn't a dramatic story, but I'm a little sleep deprived, so sorry if the writing is off, but I thought I'd tell it. My cousin, the entitled parent, has a kid, and around the time he was, if I recall correctly, around 8. He wanted to go skating or bowling for his birthday. I was around 13. Entitled parent didn't have much money at the time. She's a single parent who bounced between jobs and partners, so she decided to ask the family for some money. The family on my mother's side, cousins, aunts, uncles, etc., is a very close-knit one. If we can spare it, we help with costs of things like this. My dad, my siblings and I don't really like EP. Dad's parents and siblings lived in a different country, and his siblings were honestly nightmares, so we, unlike my mum, have been raised that family isn't everything. But my mother cares about family ties and decided that she'd be generous, offering to pay for all the entrance fees for the kids attending. I mean, how could it go wrong? It's just a birthday party. Entitled parent, of course, accepted the offer. They talked about how many kids were going to be there, when my mum could be able to send the money, and all that jazz. Oh, but there's a reason my dad absolutely despises her. My mum then found out, I don't remember how, that EP wasn't planning on inviting me or my siblings to a party she was paying for. My mother got mad, then quickly decided no, she would not be paying for a party that her kids aren't invited to. EP tries to say that she thought we wouldn't have wanted to go because of the younger kids or something, which actually we'd have loved to. We're not close to her son, but my younger sister and I at least enjoy doing things together. My older siblings at the time just enjoyed chilling with the adults. My mum doesn't accept that. She furiously points out that EP could have asked us herself if we wanted to go. EP then tries to make an excuse, something about the younger kids not wanting to be around older kids. My mother very quickly realized this wasn't an argument she cared enough to continue, so she told EP to find a way to pay for the party herself if she wasn't going to invite her own family. My dad had a good laugh about it when mum told him. He didn't say "I told you so," but it was implied. These days no one trusts EP with anything to do with money, which has caused a few fights, including getting mad another family member wouldn't lend her money. Unfortunately, she's still family, since that side of the family believes the blood is thicker than water stuff. I don't know if her kid ever had his birthday party. He's not actually a bad kid, so I hope he did, somehow. Family is really important because they're the ones who look out for you, who care for you. So what does it mean when family stops doing that? I think this story kind of raises that question in a really interesting way. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts though. When does family no longer become family? And when is it that a friend actually becomes more like family? Do you think family should stick together even if you've been mistreated by them? Or do you think at some point you have to draw the line and stand up for yourself? Let me know in the comments below. Submit your story to be read on the channel at voiceyherestories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.